This is the Mātikā by Bhikkhuஞāṇamoli, The Path of Discrimination. Maga Waga. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So these are knowledges shared by the disciples. There's 73 of them, or 67 out of 73. Understanding of applying the ears is knowledge of what is consistent in the heard or the learnt. Understanding of restraint after hearing, learning, is knowledge of what consists in virtue. Understanding of concentration after restraint is knowledge of what consists in the development of concentration. Understanding of embracing conditions is knowledge of the causal relationship of ideas. Understanding of defining past, future, and present ideas after generalization is knowledge of comprehension. Understanding of contemplating presently arisen ideas, change is knowledge of contemplation of rise and fall. Understanding of contemplating dissolution after reflecting on an object is knowledge of insight. Understanding of appearance as terror is knowledge of danger. Understanding of desires for deliverance, of reflection, and of composure is knowledge of the kinds of equanimity towards all formations. Understanding of emergence and turning away from the external is change of lineage in knowledge. Understanding of emergence and turning away from both the external and internal is the path of knowledge. Understanding of tranquilization of the task is knowledge of fruition. Understanding of contemplating what is cut off is knowledge of deliverance. Understanding of insight into ideas then arrived at is knowledge of reviewing. Understanding of defining internally is knowledge of deliverance in a physical basis. Understanding of defining externally is knowledge of deliverance in the domains of the physical basis. These are the skandhas, the physical basis. The sixth is the citta, or the mind. Understanding of defining behaviors is knowledge of deliverance of behavior of consciousness. Understanding of defining four ideas is knowledge of difference in plane. Understanding of defining 9 kinds of knowledge of difference in idea. Understanding as direct knowledge is knowledge of the meaning of what is known. Understanding as full understanding is knowledge of the meaning of judgment, investigation. Understanding as abandoning is knowledge of the sense of giving it up. Understanding as developing is knowledge of the sense of a single function of taste. Understanding as realizing of knowledge is sense of sounding. Understanding of difference in meaning is knowledge of the discrimination of meaning. Understanding of difference in mind is knowledge of the discrimination of ideas. Understanding of difference in languages is knowledge of the discrimination of language. Understanding of difference in perspicuity is knowledge of the discrimination of perspicuity. Understanding of deliverance in abiding is knowledge of the meaning of abiding. Understanding of difference in attainment is knowledge of the meaning of attainment. Understanding of difference in abiding and attainments is knowledge of the meaning of abidings and attainment. Understanding of cutting off all the crankers, the asavas, due to the pureness of non-distraction is knowledge of the concentration with immediate results. Understanding as predominance of seeing, as the achievement of peaceful abiding and the resoluteness on the sublime goal is knowledge of abiding without conflict. Understanding as mastery owing to the possession of 2 powers, to the tranquilization of 3 formations, to the 16 kinds of behavior of knowledge, and the 9 kinds of behavior of concentration is the knowledge of attainment of cessation. Understanding of termination of occurrence in one who is fully aware is knowledge of extinguishment. Understanding of the complete cutting off of all ideas of the cessation and their non-reappearance is knowledge of the meaning of the same-headedness. Understanding of separation of difference and unity and the termination of fires is knowledge of effacements. Understanding the meaning of exertion in those possessed of bestirring and endeavoring is knowledge of the application of energy. Understanding of explaining different ideas is knowledge of demonstrating their meanings. Understanding of penetrating the incredibility of all ideas as one. If their difference and unity, it's knowledge of purity in seeing. Understanding due to what is recognized, it's knowledge as choice. Understanding due to what is touched, it's knowledge of fathoming. Understanding of combination of knowledge of abiding in the reviewing of ideas and parts. Understanding due to what is given predominance, it's knowledge of turning away through perception. Understanding of difference is knowledge of turning away by the will. Understanding of establishing is knowledge of turning away of cognizance. Understanding of voidness is knowledge of turning away of knowledge. Understanding of relinquishments is knowledge of turning away by liberation. Understanding of the meaning of suchness is knowledge of turning away in the actualities. Understanding of the meaning of succeeding by defining body and cognizance as one as steadily easy perception, as quick perception, as knowledge of the kinds of success, supernatural powers. Understanding the fathoming sound signs and the difference in unity, knowledge of purification of the ear principle. Understanding of fathoming behavior of consciousness and the difference in unity by means of confidence and non-confidence in the six faculties due to the interventions of three types of cognizance as knowledge of penetration of wills. Understanding of fathoming idea conditionality arisen through interventions of difference and unity in action is knowledge of recollection of past lives. Understanding of seeing the meanings of signs of visible objects and their difference and unity by means of illumination is knowledge of the divine eye. Understanding of mastery of three faculties of 64 aspects is knowledge of exhaustion of the asavas, the mental crankers. Understanding of the meaning of full understanding is knowledge of duka. Understanding the meaning of the abandoning is knowledge of the cessation of duka. Understanding the meaning of the realization is knowledge of abandoning nirota. Understanding the meaning, developing the knowledge of the path, magga. The knowledge of dukkha, the knowledge of the origin of dukkha, the knowledge of the cessation of dukkha, the knowledge of the way leading to the cessation of dukkha. Knowledge of attainment. Knowledge of the discrimination of meaning. Knowledge of the discrimination of ideas. Knowledge of the discrimination of language. Knowledge of the discrimination of perspicuity. Now, the rest is knowledges that are not shared by the disciples or the noble ones. Knowledge of penetration of others' faculties. Knowledge of beings' bias and underlying tendencies. Knowledge of the twin metamorphosis, or we could say the twin miracle, metamorphosis. Knowledge of the great compassion, mahakaruna, omniscient knowledge and unobstructed knowledge. These are the 70 kinds of knowledges. Of these 73 kinds of knowledges, 67 are shared by the disciples. 6 are not shared by the disciples.